Now, you might have heard certain species can give insight to a particular ecosystem. Frogs do just that.
We can literally gauge the health of an environment by how well frogs are doing.
They're the first to succumb to pollution, disease, climate change. Frogs are our early warning system.
And with that being the case, alarm bells should be ringing because worldwide, a third of the 6,000 species of frog that are known to exist are threatened with extinction. And for many of the threatened species, they won't see out the next century unless something drastic happens to improve their situation.
If you think that's a bit alarmist, consider this. Around 120 frog species have been lost since the late 1970s, and 6 of them were from right here in Queensland. You've got the sharp-snouted day frog, the southern day frog, the mountain mist frog, the northern tinker frog, the northern and southern gastric brooding frogs, all gone.
It's the last of those frogs that for herpetologists across the world is the saddest of losses.
The gastric brooding frog was unique. Why? Well, the mother, after laying her eggs and mating, swallows her eggs, incubates them in her stomach, and then gives birth to fully formed froglets out of her mouth. The last of the southern variety was seen right here in the Blackhall Ranges in 1981, and that hasn't put off 50 surveys coming back here to try and rediscover the species.
The last of those was back in 2010, when a worldwide survey set out to document the survival status of 10 amphibian species not seen in over a decade. 100 researchers spent 6 months traversing some of the most remote regions on Earth, in 19 countries, 5 continents, to find species lost to science. There was some amazing success. The Mount Nimba reed frog in Ivory Coast, the Omaniundi reed frog in the Democratic Republic of Congo, both found after years of being thought extinct. No such luck with the gastric brooder though, but tonight I'm going to make it 51 surveys.
Given the fact that this frog hasn't been seen since before I was born, I don't have a lot of hope. But just like those other species, you never know.
The species was endemic to the forests and rainforests of southeast Queensland. Not all of them. It was only found between 350 and 800 metres above sea level in rocky mountain streams and pools.
They never ventured far from water. If it was raining, they might get bold and head up into the surrounding rocks a little bit, but essentially they're restricted to living along the creeks and streams.
Now, the craziest thing about the southern variety is it had only been discovered in 1972. That's 9 years from discovery to extinction. And coming at a time when frogs were dropping off the radar all around the world, you can imagine it had the experts worried.
At first, they put it down to climate change, but these are amphibians we're talking about. They've been on Earth for over 250 million years, so it's fair to say they can deal with climatic changes.
Queensland is home to Australia's largest variety of frog species. Their greatest concentration is between Cooktown and the Queensland-New South Wales border, which just so happens to be the area with the most rapidly expanding population in Australia.
Around 120 species of frog call Queensland home, but around a quarter of them are listed as threatened, endangered, or, like the gastric brooder, extinct.
At the time of the gastric brooding frog's extinction, where they lived wasn't suffering from the effects of pollution or habitat destruction, so what was killing them? It wasn't until a decade later that scientists discovered something called chytrid fungus. It's a gruesome death for any unfortunate amphibian that gets it. The most typical symptom is a thickening of the skin.
This is one of the barred frog species, and he's cruising around here on the rocks. It's only a juvenile. They're big when they're adults. This would have been a tadpole not so long ago. Now, like all frogs, it can breathe through its skin, absorb oxygen, and also secrete toxins, the bad stuff in the body, and get rid of it through its skin. The problem with that is chytrid fungus blocks their pores. Now, with that reduced oxygen, their condition begins to deteriorate. They suffocate and die slowly.
And that's what experts think happened to the southern gastric brooding frog.
Tonight's expedition to rediscover the gastric brooding frog wasn't exactly what you'd call a success. And in fact, it's a bit surreal and confronting to be somewhere where a species once lived and now is lost forever.
I'm off to Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary down on the state's border. They're working on frog husbandry techniques they hope will help save frogs from extinction. Professor Jean-Marc Hero has been studying frogs for over 20 years.
G'day, mate.
Oh, hi Tim.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Let's go and have a look at some frogs.
And what species is in this room?
Well, here we have the Tordactylus liami, which is the tinker frog from Youngula.
And a species that's in real strife.
It is. It's like all of the Tordactylus, they've been severely declined. We've got several species completely disappeared, but luckily these ones are still around, but only just.
How many are in here?
Well, there's a number of adults and an unknown number of metamorphs because there's so many of them. There's something around 150 metamorphs that the Currumbin team have managed to breed here in captivity.
Okay, so what's the plan? What are we going to do now?
Always lots to do in here. We've got to feed them, we've got to clean them, we've got to find females, find males, put them together at the right time. So let's go and see if we can find a female.
Okay. This is the female?
Yeah.
One of the first things I notice in here is that it's cold, really clean, clear water and rocky. Most people imagine a frog pond to be muddy water, some reeds, frogs croaking everywhere, but what is it about this species that means they need this sort of environment?
Well, the tinker frogs are unusual. They're stream breeding frogs, so they don't live in swamps, they don't live in ponds. They really like crystal clear mountain streams, cool rainforest environments, and they hide and live under rocks. And that's where they lay their eggs, which is in a very secretive place. There we go.
You got her?
All right, so now that we've got her, we can hopefully see, you can see in her belly, she's got a belly full of eggs.
Look at that, I had no idea.
So it's very easy to tell if it's a female and if she's gravid, that's for sure.
And that's important that you observe this now to know to introduce a male when the time's right?
That's right. So if we look under and we see the eggs,
Look at that.
we know she's getting ready and it's time to find a male.
And they're all white.
Yeah, it's unusual. Most frogs' eggs have black on them to protect them from the sun, but because these frogs lay their eggs under rocks, they're all white. So the trick here is once we've started to breed them, we can breed them in captivity once, but the real hard question is, can we breed them twice? So can we get captive bred individuals to breed again? So that's what we're up to.
That's what you're trying to answer.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to do now?
Well, I think we should just, she's gravid, she's looking good and ready. We'll just measure and weigh her,
Okay.
and then we're ready to go.
Now we know our girl is ready to mate, all we have to do is pick a lucky bachelor, place her into his pad, and let nature do the rest.
There he is,
Oh, great.
under that rock.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let's put the female in with him, eh?
What do you think will happen now?
Well, what we can do is we can play some frog calls to get him excited and get him calling. They produce lots of eggs, and I've just got some here to show you what they look like because they're all white and unpigmented.
So she'll start to lay her eggs, they'll
She'll
be
lay
mating.
them under a rock in there, and then once they're ready to hatch, they'll turn into little tadpole.
Look at that.
And this is what we've got here.
He's got legs.
Yeah, they grow up and metamorphose into little frogs, and then we put them into their own chambers.
Yeah?
Let's go and have a look at
Got a
that.
few in here.
So we keep them in these boxes. I've got one out just to show you how tiny they really are.
And that right there's the next generation, and for some species, captive breeding might be the future.
Well, the hope is that if we can captive breed this species, we can captive breed other species that are even more endangered. But what we really should do is go and see some frogs in the field.
And I would love that.
It's heartening to see so much work going into making sure frogs remain a part of the environment. We're heading into the Gold Coast hinterland. The rainforest up here is perfect habitat for plenty of frog species.
This is it.
This is it.
It's beautiful.
And it's an awesome place to study.
What makes it suitable for endangered species still to exist?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that they need really good, untouched rainforest.
Have any species gone extinct from this area?
Not from this exact stream. We've still got some giant barred frogs. We've still got some flaze frogs.
Yep.
A lot of frogs have declined and almost disappeared, but not completely
They're
gone.
still hanging on.
Yeah.
Okay, but a number of endangered species.
Yeah, and they've certainly disappeared from the highlands.
What's the plan now?
Right, well, we'll just sit and relax and wait for the sun to go down.
I can get this off.
Yeah.
Set out.
The frogs won't be active until nightfall, so we've got a bit of time before the action begins.
One of the biggest threats to frogs is what we've seen on the way in here, which is habitat loss. And that's easy to mitigate because we've just got to stop cutting down the forest. Other more subtle effects, which are disease, chytridiomycosis, which is a fungal pathogen killing frogs all over the world. And now we've got this emerging threat of climate change, which works synergistically, which means that frogs become stressed from climate change and they're more vulnerable to disease. So it's the link which is really threatening frogs now.
And are there species that are more susceptible? Are there some that just transmit or transfer the disease? How does it work?
Great question. We're still trying to solve a lot of these mysteries as to why some frogs have disappeared and others have not. There are many reasons to explain why some frogs have survived. One of them is rather elusive, and that is that they have lots and lots of eggs, so they have large clutches. Other species live in microhabitats which are not good for the disease, for the chytrid fungus to grow. Other frogs have proteins on their skin which protect them from fungal pathogens, and so they kill the disease before it even takes them over. So there are many different factors which affect whether an individual species is affected or not. But what we do know is that some frogs carry it, and in this habitat we've got several frog species which have high prevalence of the disease but don't appear to be affected by it. Okay. And those frogs we're probably going to find tonight in greater abundance.
That bodes well for tonight's expedition. Now it's dark, the frogs are letting us know they're out and about.
Mark, frog. It's a bard.
Male or a female?
Well, it's bigger than the ones I'm used to, but I think it's a female. It's massive.
Oh, wow. Okay, I think you're going to need some gloves, Tim.
Female?
I think it's a female, all right. I don't get much bigger than that.
All right, gloves on.
Gloves on, let's get up. All right, and now one hand in front.
Yep. Got her.
Excellent.
What a frog.
Yeah, they don't get much better than this. Look at those big golden eyes. So that's a characteristic of this species, is those beautiful big golden eyes. Full webbing on the feet.
Ah, fully webbed, hey?
Look at that beautiful.
This must be twice the size of the greater bard that I'm used to.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. These are the biggest by mass of any frog in Australia. Great sexy thighs, you've got to show them that.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at those thighs.
So this is where they get their name?
Yeah, absolutely. The bars, and then this species has those beautiful yellow flecks, golden flecks.
How can you tell that's a female? You're familiar with them?
Well, just by the size, but the males also have nuptial pads.
Okay, in the
thigh,
she has none.
which she doesn't have, of course. So yeah, it's hard to see with tinker frogs. You can see the eggs through the belly, but with this one you can't.
Do we think that she's gravid because of that size?
I don't think so. I think this time of year she would have already laid her eggs.
Yes.
So she's just out feeding now, yolking up for next year.
Okay, let her go.
sure. Hey Tim, look at this.
What do you got?
Ah, it's a little juvenile. It's just come out of the water not too long ago.
Oh, yeah, look at him.
And I reckon you could get him.
You want to have a look at him?
Yeah. Awesome.
How old is that?
Well, by the look of that one, it's been out for a little while. He's lost his tail. And he's just...
Hold on, you're saying he's lost his tail like he's recently morphed from a tadpole to
Yeah.
that? Are you kidding?
No, not at all. They come out pretty big.
Really?
They're really big metamorphs. And hasn't been out too long, maybe a month or two.
How good is that, finding a female that's probably been down here and bred, and now you've got the next generation?
Absolutely. So there's nothing better than finding females and finding juveniles.
We've got both.
We've got a good breeding population. And what's that we can hear? I think it's a male.
Is that walk?
Walk, walk, walk.
How good is that?
So the boys are still calling. Let's see if we can find one.
Oh, I'd love to. Is he right back where he was?
Yeah, sure.
Where you go, mate? He's off.
Two giant bards is a great find, especially as they're an endangered species.
I found another one.
What do you got?
I think it's a stony creek frog.
Well, it sure is. It's a male. You can see the big nuptial pads on his head.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
And they're amazing because they turn bright yellow when they go into amplexus.
Okay. Any reason for that? So what, they grab a girl, they start mating, and he turns yellow?
Well, yeah, it seems strange to be doing it before, so he's not going to be able to attract her. But what it is to keep other males away.
Oh, so that's a signal. I'm
Yeah.
mating.
That's a signal too. Let me go.
Let me go. Righto. And I'll do just that. There you go, mate.
This area seems to be thriving, just as we'd hoped.
What a beautiful find. That's one endangered, giant bard, and one threatened cascade tree frog.
Yep. The vocal pouch on these guys is not big and it's not easily to see unless it's inflated.
Okay, so there's no colour change in it either. It's just white like the rest of the belly?
Yeah, but
Okay.
you'll see he will have nuptial pads.
Yes. And that's full grown. What a sexy
Yeah,
little frog.
It's as big as they get. Time to let him go.
Time to let him go. Or time for him to go.
There he goes.
It's getting late and time to head back.
I can hear an lotus.
You can hear a tusk frog.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe under one of these rocks here. I can just hear it. I think
Right in
he's
here.
under that rock there.
We've got a tusk frog here somewhere. And he's calling, but they're notoriously difficult to find and catch.
So I'm going to lift the rock. You catch him.
Okay.
Ready?
Here he is. I got him. There we go. Look at that.
So this is the only frog in Australia where the males are bigger than the females.
Why's that?
Well, it's because they're fighting machines. They have big tusks on their lower jaws,
That's where the name comes from.
the tusk frog, and the males use it for male-to-male combat and to protect the pond and make sure that the females that come here are just for them.
You can tell he's a male right away by his size.
Yeah, and also by the size of his tusks. So the female has some very reduced tusks. But this guy was calling, so only male frogs call. Look at that beautiful mottling on
Look
the
at
belly.
that.
Look at that, and you can see the red on the thighs.
What a unique frog, and one I've wanted to see for a long time. Put him right back where he was. There you are, little mate.
I've had a great time up here in Queensland. Pity I never found the gastric brooding frog, but if you're ever up this way, keep an eye out. You never know.
As John Mark says, the survival of Earth depends on frogs. But it's up to us to make sure that frogs have a future. After what I've seen here tonight, there's hope for us all. Good night.
Great stuff.